Hi everyone, in this video we are going to learn about the top 10 SQL functions that will be very useful for you. In each SQL function we are going to learn about its use case, its syntax, and also we are going to look at its practical implementation. Now of course some of the function you'll already know, so we are going to categorize those functions as the beginner function, and there are about 7 functions which I'm calling as advanced functions. You may also know some functions from these, so please let me know in the comment section on which functions you would like to know more, or maybe some of the functions that you already know. So the table that we are going to use is actually 3 tables: employees, orders, and customer tables. Now of course you can figure out that this is going to be somewhere around a general store database. And let us quickly go to our pg admin. I'm using pg admin. Now pg admin is like MySQL workbench or something like that. So I'm just going to write my first query and look at the table first that we have. So we have employees. So in employees table, we have employee ID, first name, last name, department, salary, and then the hiring date. Then we have customers. Here we have the customer ID, first name, last name, phone number, email, and then finally we have the orders table. Okay, in the orders table, we have order ID, customer ID, order date, total amount, and metadata. So using these 3 tables, we are going to learn the 10 SQL functions. So let's get started and look at the first 3 beginner functions that we have. In each of the function, we are going to first look at its scenario, and then we are also going to have a follow-up question, because that is how it is usually asked in your coding interview rounds. So scenario number 1 is a store manager wants to know how many employees are currently working in this store to plan shift rotation efficiently. The question that we have for here is, how can the manager count the total number of employees in the company? To solve this query, we are going to look at the count function, and the count function in SQL is used to return the number of rows in a result set. Now, whenever you run a query, you see an output. Now, if you want to know how many rows are returned, you use the count function to count the number of rows. So the syntax is pretty simple. We used select, then count keyword, and the column which we want to count, number of rows we have in a particular in that column. So we mentioned that column, and then everything is followed up very simple. That is from table name and then where condition. So we are back into our PG admin, and let us go ahead and again look at the employees table we have. Okay, so we have, so we can definitely look at it and say that we have 5 number of employees. Of course, it is very much visible from the result set. But what if we had 10,000 records and we wanted to know? So what we're going to do is we are going to come here after select, and we are going to write count, and then you could, inside the count, we need to give the column name. Now you could be giving any column name because all have the same number of rows. So what I could do is maybe I could just say count all, pick all the columns, right? So the answer would be 5. Now what if you have let's say multiple employees name, right? So in that case, what you do, you use a keyword called distinct. That is also another function. But I'm not gonna talk about that in this video. That's going to be your homework on how to actually find the unique number of rows. At this instance, we get the 5 as an output, which means there are 5 employees in the company. But what if there were multiple values and you wanted to find only the unique ones? So go to the Google and try to find out. That's your homework. Now let's move to the next scenario, that is a company's HR department wants to determine whether they are paying competitive salaries compared to industry standard. And the question that we have is, what is the average salary of employees in the company? Now to answer this, we are going to use another function that is called average. Now what is average? Average is actually one of the aggregate functions that is pre-built in SQL. What it does is that it takes the set of values and returns you a single value. It's just like doing your mathematical average function, but you don't have to write or code entirely from the scratch. And there are quite a few aggregate functions. For instance, the one that we did now, count, was also a part of aggregate function. You can also do sum, average, max, and min. Let us look at the syntax. So we write select aggregate function, then we write the column on which we want to perform this function, from table where condition, and then comes towards the end is the group by. So to find the average salary of the employees, what we are going to do, we are going to say select We are going to work on the same employees table that we have. We are going to say AVG, that is the function that we have, and then mention the column, that is average salary. Now here we get 60,400. Now you see a lot of zeros. You could actually do it, maybe bring it down to maybe only 2 digits, and the way you do it is by the round function. Now what round function does is actually, you can round off to how many digits you want after the decimal. Again, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. That's another kind of function. It's your homework to go ahead and do research and find out on how you can use round function in SQL. Moving on, we have the third scenario, that is a customer service portal displays employee details, but currently it shows separate first name and last name. The UI team requests a single full name column for better readability. The question that we have here is, how can we display employees' full names instead of separate first and last name? So if you actually go to the your table and try to run it, the employees table, that is select star from employees, you will realize that we have first name in one column, and in second column we have the last name. So the query is that we want these two names to be in one column, because at the end of the day it's one name. So the way you do it is by using another function that's called concat. Concat, what it really does, it concatenates two or more strings into one. And the syntax is pretty simple. You use the concat keyword, then inside the parentheses, you write the columns you want to concatenate. Here, string 1, string 2 actually means your columns. So we'll go back to our PG admin, and we are going to use the employees table because that's where we have the first and last name. We are going to use the keyword concat, and here we are going to write the first name because that is the column name, and then we are going to write last name. Let us run it. Now when you run this query, you of course get the first and last name in one single column, but there's a problem here. And what is that? Is that we don't have a space between first and last name. What you could actually do here is, after the first name and before last name, you could actually give a blank space, and that would count. So let us run it. So there you go. Now you have the first and last name in one single cell divided by a space. Now we are going to look at the advanced function. So let us look at the first scenario that we have, and that is a customer service team wants to contact list of customers, but some records are missing phone numbers. Instead of showing null, they want to display not provided. So the question that we have here is, how can we replace missing phone numbers with a default message? Now, if you actually go to the customers table, you'll realize that in the phone column, the first one we have a value, second one we don't, third we have a value, and fourth we don't. Now our ask here is that we don't want these null values to be displayed, but instead wherever the value does not exist, wherever there's a null value, we want a custom value to be added there, and that is not found, or maybe phone number not available. So the way we can do this is by using a function that's called coalesce. So what it does, that this returns the first null value from a list. Simply, it finds the null values in your column and then it replaces this with the values that you have mentioned. The syntax is pretty simple. You write the keyword coalesce after select, and then you write the column and then the value you want to replace it with. So let us go to RPG admin. And here we are going to write coalesce, and inside it we want to mention the column where we want to perform this function. So it's going to be phone number, and then we have to mention the value that we want to be replaced by the null. So we are going to write not provided. So we're going to run it. Now if you see, we have got the values, but wherever we had null value, it is now written as not provided. That's how you use coalesce to replace the null values with the values you want. That brings us to the fifth scenario, and that is a company wants to report the top 10 highest paid employees. If two employees have the same salary, the one who joined earlier should rank higher. That is the scenario, and the question that we have is, how can we assign a unique rank to each employee based on salary, prioritizing those who joined earlier in case of ties? Now what it's actually asking is, I'll go to the PG admin and I actually have the query run, and that is this. This is the output that we're expecting. We need first name, Bob, Jane, Charlie, John, Alice, and then next to it we need a new column that we're going to call it rank, and we are going to rank them with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 depending upon the salary. Now this does not have a salary as an output, so but if you put salary next to it, you'll realize that Bob is the one who's making the most, whereas Alice is making the least. So we can achieve this by using a function, and that is our row number. So what does row number do? Row number assigns a unique number to each row based on a specified order. And the syntax for this is pretty simple. That is, after the select keyword, we are going to write the row number, and then we are going to specify on which column, or depending on which column do we want to specify this row number, because you're going to have multiple columns in a outset, right? In the data output that you're going to get, you're going to have multiple columns. So using the over keyword, we are going to tell that, okay, you need to give row numbers depending upon this column. So you write the over keyword and then you write the column name. Here we are going to order it by the ascending or descending, because we want the maximum salary to be on the top. That is why we are going to order it. And then we can also use the as keyword, which is used as an alias, a name to a column as row number, and then followed by that you have column 1 and column 2 from table. So let us come back to our PG admin and look at the employees table that we have. The obvious thing would be is to first actually go ahead and pick up the columns that we need, and that is going to be the salary column. Of course, we also need the first name, so I'm going to use the first name first. And let us run it. So we now have the first name and the salary. And what I could do actually is, I'm going to say order by then salary, and it should be descending order, right? Because we want the max salary to be at the top. So we now have Bob, Jane, Charlie, Alice, and next to it we have Bob making the maximum, whereas Alice making the least with 45,000. Now our job is to actually add another column that says maybe the ranking or row number, or maybe rank, and we have to assign a number. So we already see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but this is not a part of our output. Okay, this is a part of the PG admin or the SQL output. So the way we are going to use it is, after select, we are going to say row number, and then we are going to close this function with the parentheses, and then we are going to use over keyword, and inside the over keyword we are going to define the column on which we want this node number to be assigned. So I'm going to copy this one, salary, and I'm going to put it inside, and I'm going to format this SQL so that you can see it clearly, and there you have it. But one thing is, we also need to rename it. So I'm going to say as rank, and there you have it. We have rank, first name, and salary. So Bob is making the most, so he gets as rank first, and Alice is making the least, so it is number 5. And that is how you use row number to give a sequence of number in your data output. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the 6th scenario, which means you're already halfway down of this video. And if you already enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments by liking it, and share your feedbacks about this video. The 6th scenario that we have is, an e-commerce company stores order details in a JSON column. The marketing team needs a report on customer names from recent orders. And the question that we have here is, how do we extract the customer name from JSON column in the orders table? Now, if you look at the table that we have in the orders table, we have order ID, customer ID, order date, total amount, and metadata. Now, the information about the orders is stored in the metadata column, and the data type of this column is JSON. So our job is to extract the name from this columns. So how do we do it? We use a function from the SQL, that is JSON value, that helps us extract data from JSON formatted columns. And the syntax is pretty simple, just the way you would select a column. Instead of that, you're going to write the JSON value keyword, and inside the parentheses, the first value that you're going to give is the JSON column name, followed by the key column pair. So how it works is, we go to our PG admin, and here we are going to write select JSON underscore value. Now if you see, what is the first value that we need to give? It is the metadata, followed by the key column pair of the JSON data. So what do we have? We're going to use the dollar keyword and then dot. We have customers. If you see, we have customers, and then inside the customers we have name. So we are going to write customers, then dot name as customer underscore name, and then in a new line we can say from orders. So there you have it. You have customer name, Emily Johnson, Michael Clark, and Sarah Lee. And similarly, you can also get other details like we had it. If I go to the history and look at the table that we have here. So you also have items and laptops. Maybe what you could do is you could try to find the items that were sold in their recent orders. And the way you would do is dollar sign dot items, then dot item. Let us now move to our next scenario, that is scenario number 7. Here, the HR team is preparing a summary report that lists all department names in a single row instead of multiple rows. The question that we have is, how can we combine all department names into a single string? Now, if you look at the employees table, you'll realize that we have departments like sales, engineering, marketing, engineering, and sales, right? So what we want is we need one cell, that is only one row and column, where we can have sales, engineering, marketing, engineering, sales, all these department names listed in one single row. So how do we do that? For that, we use a function that is called string AGG. Okay, it's called, what it does is it's aggregate. So it concatenates values from multiple rows into a single string with a delimiter. And it is pretty simple to use. You write the string a underscore a double g column name, and then you write the delimiter. So let's go back to our PG admin. And here we are going to say, so we have departments, we are going to write string underscore a double g, and the column where we want all the values to be aggregated is the department column, and then the delimiter that we want to use is the comma and space. Let us run it. And there you have it. We have sales, engineering, marketing, engineering, and sales. Now you may say, okay, sales and engineering are multiple times. How do we, pick only one? In the later part of this video, I'm going to show you how you can pick only the unique values by using the subqueries or a sort of subqueries. We now come to our scenario number 8, where a financial analyst wants to see the total salary expense per department while still displaying individual salaries for a detailed cost breakdown. And the question that we have here is, how can we calculate the total salary for each department while keeping the individual salary visible? So what we can do here actually is use the window function, and what it does is that it performs a function over a particular set of rows and columns. So that's what it does, and the expected output that we want is engineering's total salary, marketing total salary, and then the sales total salary. That is what we need. And we want, since engineering is mentioned multiple times, so we need multiple times, because we say that it preserves the column without collapsing the rows. So let us go back to our PG admin, and here we actually have it. So we say select department, and then we use the sum aggregate function. We're performing the sum over the column that is salary, and then we're using the over keyword, and then we are saying partition by department, because that is what we want, right? That is the column where we want to perform the window function, and we are renaming it as total salary, and then we say the employees table. And that's how you get the output for each engineering. You get the total salary, while we have the sum of the salary for each department. We have not changed the number of rows in the data set. That is the, I know this is not the ideal way to do this, but from the given data set, that is what I could do. But just remember that window functions are used to perform the function over a particular set of rows and columns. In the ninth scenario, we have a company's HR department wants to compare each employee's salary with the next highest paid employee's salary to analyze the salary gap. And the question that we have is, how can we retrieve each employee's salary along with the salary of the next highest paid employee? And that is the expected output that we have. So we need the first name, we need the salary of that person, and then we also need another column that is called next salary, and we want to see the salary of the next second the next highest salary after that person. So if Bob is making 80,000, we want to know the next salary which is highest to him, which is highest after him. So it's pretty simple. To save the time, I am going back to my PG admin. And there, first, let us look at the function, right? The function that we're going to use is actually the lead function. So lead function, what it does, that it accesses the next row value in a result set. So if you have 3 rows, so it can, and you are on row number 1, you can actually pick up the values from row number 2 and give it to you in the row number 1. So you use the keyword lead, and then you write the column name, you use the over keyword, and you can give maybe the order by column or whatever you want, and then you can rename it. Simply let us go back to RPG admin and remove all of this, and let me paste it here. And just to save time, I'm gonna run this one. So it's pretty simple. You see, first we're saying select first name and salary. No rocket science there. And here we want by salary. Okay, since we want the salary to be displayed, we are saying that, hey, pick up the salaries, and we want the salaries to be ordered by descending order, and we are going to actually name this column as next salary, then from table employees. When you run it, we get the first name, last name, and the next salary, which is highest to the current salary. For 75 we have 52, for 52 we have 50,000, and then eventually for Alice we have nothing because we have no more data here. We finally come to one last scenario, that is a data analyst needs to find department where the total salary expense exceeds $50,000. Instead of running multiple queries, they want to calculate departmental total first and then filter the results. The question that we have here is, how can we first calculate total salaries per department and then filter department with high expenses? Now, if you look at it, right, here we have two kind of situation. First, we want to calculate something, and then we want to perform a filter on it. Now, there are two ways to do it. The first one is, of course, you could be using this subquery. Then the other one is the CTE, that is common table expression. And the way it works is you break down complex query into a manageable parts by creating temporary table. It just means that you are breaking your big queries into smaller parts. And the syntax that we have is pretty simple. We have with CTE in the column name. So think of it, inside the as we have one set of queries, and then we are naming this as with CTE. So all this query will be recognized with the name that you mentioned over here. And then towards the end, you can use this query with select star from CTE, just like you would use any other column. So let us go back to RPG admin. I'm gonna paste the results, the query here. And there you go. So we are going to say, okay, not this one. So we are going to use the keyword with, and we are naming this query, this entire query, as department tools. And inside we're saying, hey, select department, do an aggregate function of sum on the salary, call it as total salary from employees, and group by department. And once this query runs, the values are stored in the department total. And towards the end, we are saying select star from department total. And when we run it, this is the output that we get. We get marketing total salary, engineering total salary, and sales total salary. Remember, just sometime back in the video, I said we will be able to see on how you can pick only the unique ones, and that is how you can do it. So that is it, boys and girls. Thank you so much for watching the video till here. If you're still here, please share your feedbacks in the video's comment section. And if you like this video, let me know by liking and subscribing to this YouTube channel. And I'll see you in the next videos.